So recently, Dan had some new interviews with people on YouTube. The first one I found is Dan speaking to Josh Horowitz. They cover a lot of topics, but here are the main points. There's a lot of videos and comments on social media where people are blaming Disney for how the movie turned out. But Dan goes on to say Disney had no influence in his movie. So that means the stuff about family issues, building friendships, and going through emotions, all of that is because of Dan. They talk about the connection to Alien, and Dan repeats what he said before, basically just saying there's no rush for it. Badlands was not intended as a marketing gimmick into a new AVP movie, but it would be great if this does lead into a heavier crossover. But the main focus of Badlands is the story of a yautja trying to prove himself. The big robot that Tessa would use against the Kalisk and Dek was definitely an iteration of the alien's power loader. As Dan called it, it's a super power loader, and it was fully intended to mimic what we saw in Aliens. The idea was to give the Predator an opponent that was really gnarly and technological. He wanted to have this battle in the movie because it's one thing that was not done in the franchise yet. When talking about the Kalisk, he points out that the creature is not just unkillable. Now when it gets cut up by the saw, it does not bleed. When the saw cuts through its body, that's just flesh flying off. The final battle with Dek vs. Jor had a different ending. One version had a scene similar to the one in Japan of Killer of Killers, where they rush each other, they swing their weapons, and it shows the father was cut. Then Big Bud comes over and bites his head off. They later changed it to make it a bit longer. When they mention Deks Mother, the reason she's put into the ending is because it leaves a sense of someone that is more dangerous than his father Jor. When his mom is brought up, Dan says he does have thoughts of what to do with her in another story. He mentions that Naru from Prey was in this movie. A hologram of her appears in this scene when Dek is talking to Kuei and they're scrolling through different Prey. You can see her right there. The backbiter from Killer of Killers does appear in Badlands, but he didn't say where it was. He says a key line in the movie syncs up with something from Prey. This might be when Dek says, "I am prey to none," or I could be wrong. Dan says during the first test screen of the movie, he went to the bathroom, then two guys walk in, and he overheard them talking about the movie, saying things like, "What the F was that? That piece of..." He says that moment really shattered him, but the second time they had a screening, he went to the bathroom again, but this time didn't hear anything of what people said. There's another interview with Brandon Davis. These are the main points. The main entry point of making Badlands was to make something new that nobody has done before. He did not want to rush to make a sequel to Prey, and also he wanted a movie where the Predator finally wins, but at the same time trying to avoid making a typical slasher movie, instead making the story about adventure and friendships. When he finished Badlands, Dan says he still feels like he's not done the ultimate thing, so he still feels pressure to continue making great films. The Codex that appears at the start of Killer of Killers is 0522. The specimen number of the Kalisk is 0522. But Dan says the numbers for the Codex in Killer of Killers is the birthday of Steve Asbell, the president of 20th Century Studios. They talk about Dan's next movie. Previously, Dan has said he had 3 ideas in mind after Prey, which is Killer of Killers, Badlands, and the third one was supposed to be What Happens to Naru. But during this interview, he says a different answer. The third idea was another unique thing, something that was never seen in the franchise. So did he change his mind about the sequel to Prey? Unless if this new idea does include Naru. They talk about the age of Naru, Mike Harrigan, and Dutch, and if they should bring those characters back in animation form. Dan says that both animation and live action bring something to the table, so there's no real answer how they're going to bring those characters back, but he did say the important thing is to make a story that has not been done before. Back in 1996, Robert Rodriguez wrote a script for Predators. Dutch is taken to a planet and put in a big arena to fight for his life. There's a small scene with Dutch and the Predator King. Dutch would take him out and escapes the planet in a Predator ship. This could work in animation form, Dutch versus the Warlord Predator. That could be cool. The time period of Badlands takes place after Alien Resurrection. It's way into the future. The last thing here is Dan talks about Stranger Things. He used the Duffer Brothers to be the voice of Quay's ship. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.
I